Welcome our BVA members and friends to this final day of our August Zoom educational sessions. We're also live streaming these presentations on Facebook Live today, so we want to welcome all those that are joining us on Facebook. Today we have an outstanding lineup of guests for 3 45-minute sessions. Our second and third sessions will immediately follow this one at both 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock Eastern Time. If you wish to continue with the next session or sessions, you may leave the meeting and log back into the platform, or you may simply stay in the meeting during the 2 15-minute breaks at 1:45 and at 2:45. For this first session, exploring the VA and the VBA system, we're very privileged to have with us Dr. Paul R. Lawrence. Dr. Lawrence is VA's 7th Undersecretary for Benefits. He was confirmed by the United States Senate on April 26th, 2018. Dr. Lawrence leads more than 24,000 employees in the Veterans Benefits Administration in the delivery of benefits for veterans, including disability compensation, pension and fiduciary, education, home loan guarantees, folk rehab and employment, life insurance, and the Transition Assistance Program. Prior to his confirmation, Dr. Lawrence served as Vice President of Kaiser Associates. He has 30 years of experience working closely with federal leaders as a senior management consultant and has researched and written extensively on management and government. Time permitting, at the end, Dr. Lawrence will take some questions. Please use the raise hand function in Zoom, and questions can also be typed into the Q&A or the chat function, and we'll try to call on you. Without any more delay, I'll turn the time over to Dr. Lawrence.
Well, thank you very much. And I definitely want to allow time for questions at the end. So I thought what I'd do is talk for a few minutes here, and then we can do questions based on the time available and your format. So let's talk about what goes on in the Veterans Benefits Administration. We generally talk about it as we are the bridge to the American dream. And let me explain. After you become a veteran, you know, you are now have access to a series of benefits, and these are not entitlements, but things our veterans have earned. And I think they're all sort of well thought out in terms of how they're supposed to help our veterans not only realize and return to civilian life, but accelerate relative to their peers. So just think about a couple of the benefits, right? You've been injured in service and we have compensation to deal with the economic impairment, right? But more importantly, there's a couple others that often don't get spoke about because, and ironically, they go all the way back to the original GI Bill, right? So again, part of the American dream was get a good job and earn a living, hence the notion of free education or something very close to that to make sure you're able to do that. And again, we have many examples of folks who use the GI Bill and relative to their peers who went into debt to get a college education, they did not. And that helped them accelerate faster. The home loan guarantee, which is part of the original GI Bill, the ability to purchase a home with no money down, virtually unheard of in the late 1940s. Again, one of those benefits for our veterans. Again, many examples of folks who use the equity from the home loan to open a small business and accelerate their position in life. I think many of your members are familiar with vocational rehabilitation and employment, another education and training-based offering. And the one thing I bring to your attention, because I think this is a tremendously valuable, but folks often don't want to think about this, is the insurance program we run. We run the 14th largest insurance portfolio in the United States. We cover more than 5.6 million individuals, veterans, family members, and the like. And again, it's something that you often can't get because on your service disability in the private market, it is a very good program. It enables you to create net wealth as a result. So all of these programs are designed and they're available to our veterans to help them with their pursuit of what we call the American dream. So we try real hard to focus in on customer service because we know that often the first interactions our veterans have with the VA is through the Veterans Benefits Administration. So Secretary Wilkie talks all the time about the importance of customer service and serving our veterans well. We take that very, very personally here. We know that you'll interact with us through the claims process. You'll call us. You'll visit us on the web or some such version of that. So we really work to make sure all those interactions are good. Do we have it all perfect and is everything excellent all the time? I'd like to say yes, but we know it's not. But we'd simply ask that, keep trying with us. We'll eventually get it right. We don't mean to have it go astray, but we're available and we're getting better all the time. One of the things we talk about is our call centers. If you have questions about benefits, you can always call us at 1-800-827-1000. We've really improved the service that we provide through this line. We answer generally phone calls in less than a minute, and we try real hard to take care of our veterans that way, for example. So you should be seeing a series of improvements in the Veterans Benefits Administration that have been going on the last few years in terms of letting our benefits be accessible to our veterans. Two new things I want to call your attention to that are, we're trying to get the word out about. One is a program that got started, both programs got started in December of last year, called Solid Start. Solid Start comes from President Trump's executive order in 2018 that asked both DOD, Department of Labor, and all of us, to rethink the transition process. What came out of that was an action plan to really help our new veterans connect, just so because they leave, the U.S. military, the world's greatest team, they become a civilian. That one of the concerns is disconnecting. So Solid Start's a program where we call, the members of the VBA call new veterans in their first year, generally after 90 days, about the mid-year thing, one towards the end, and really invite them to join the veteran community, right? The world's strongest community now, veterans. We invite them to participate in their benefits, and we show them how if they let us. These calls are designed to be driven by the veteran we call. We don't lecture to them. We ask them, what questions do you have? Generally, there are questions about how do I access benefits? How do I access healthcare? We answer their questions. During the pandemic, there are a lot of questions about employment. We follow up with an email, with resources and the like, and try to connect them. We are prioritizing, as we've gotten smarter and newer in this program, we are prioritizing the veterans who have had mental health appointments in their last year of being in service so that we can get to them. Ironically, I think a lot of this was designed with suicide in mind, but now we're seeing that that is a very small fraction of what we deal with on these phone calls. It's a desire to get information to our veterans about their benefits, which is sort of something we deal with VBA every day. How do we get information? How do we let people know about the benefits and the like? So if you receive one of these phone calls, understand that's what we're trying to do. And even though things might be great now and you don't need this phone call, please continue to participate with us, because we think over time things can change. And we're really trying to help our veterans. It's not just the new young veterans, it's some of the ones who have served for a long time who are benefiting from these phone calls as well, because you just often just don't know what you don't know. And that's what it's designed to do. If your friends or you do a buddy check and they ask you about this, please encourage them. If they said, gee, I've been out for 90 days and I haven't heard, it's most likely we don't have your contact information, and that happens. So call that 1-800-827-1000 number and say, I want to leave my information for Solid Start so I can start to get the calls, and that would be great. The other program I'd like to call your attention to is the Veterans Benefits Banking Program. The Veterans Benefits Banking Program, if you want to search this in your on your search engine. We are very concerned about veterans who receive their benefits not using the banking system. We call those unbanked veterans. So let me explain. You can, a small fraction, well, it's a big number. A big number of veterans receive their benefits via a check or a prepaid debit card. And these are some of the worst ways to receive your benefits. As you can imagine, you lose your check, then we have to go get you a new check. And you don't have your benefits while that's happening. And it takes a while for us to do that because we have to interact with Treasury. In these prepaid debit cards, our veterans get charged fees when they access their benefits. And I just think that's inappropriate that we spend your benefit money using a card and they charge you fees. In addition, all kinds of possibilities for fraud, identity theft, and the like. So we're really trying to encourage our veterans to use the banking system. Previously, we got feedback that say, gee, I don't want to do that. Sometimes they charge me fees. So we worked with 33 banks and credit unions to provide free checking to veterans when they put their benefits into they just open an account and get their benefits at these institutions. So again, it's free checking. You can receive your benefits in a bank or a credit union. If you go to the Veterans Benefits Banking Program on the web, you will be brought to a page that describes the 33 banks and credit unions, and you can see them that will provide you this access. It is, these are large, nationally regulated banks and credit unions. You will recognize some of the names. They have locations. They have strong customer service, information. They have protection. They're regulated by the federal government, as I said. And quite frankly, they have full-time teams that do nothing but protect their customers against fraud. And we think that's very, very important. So again, you're doing your buddy check. Someone shows you the check or talks about, how flexibility. Tell them it's really important this time of the world to be banked. And we started this in December, and we're really seeing an uptick of veterans who didn't realize it, and we're trying to help them understand there's a better way to do that. So one of the questions I get asked all the time is what's going on during the pandemic? And so the pandemic did change a couple things at VBA. We were very telework enabled. Prior to me, the team had invested heavily in getting our folks being telework enabled. We had done that off and on based on the circumstances, but everybody was ready. So in mid-March, when we said, please go home and get out of the office for all the reasons we all know, our team was able to do that quite well. So we really didn't miss a beat. Obviously, public contact suffered because we couldn't do that anymore. And that remains the case in almost all of our offices. But we have the telephone number, we have the website, we're available, and we're all leaning in to try to figure out how to help veterans who have questions. So that was one way. The other way we got affected was, as many of the veterans know on this meeting, we have to do a C&P exam, compensation and pension exam, to validate the conditions our veterans have to provide them benefits. Not a medical exam, it's a validation. Those are scheduled generally in person with a medical provider, a contractor we have to do these. We had to stop those exams on April 2nd, April 3rd, after VHA announced they were stopping on April 2nd for reasons of health, not only of the veterans, but also of the employees. So while that was going on and we'd stopped the in-person exams, we tried to do things with the medical evidence in our veterans' records, the existing medical records, or even doing some tele-C&P exams, which were limited by virtue of what we need to see and measure and watch during those exams. So that resulted in fewer claims being processed and more partial grants being awarded. Around about middle of June, based on the situation in different parts of the country, the in-person C&P exams re-began. And now we are in all 50 states doing this, but just not in every location in all 50 states. So part of it is the flexibility of what's going on in the communities. And so we're limited by that. We're also limited by, again, what's going on in the community and the ability to take off PPE. So if some of the veterans said, gee, they're doing some things in my area, but no one's reached out to me to get my appointment, it could very well be we have to take off PPE, and that's not allowed in the area. But we're really pushing hard to do that because, of course, claims that need to be granted, but we can't validate the conditions, that's causing a problem. But that's starting back up. We're seeing that taking place, like I said, in all states now, and we're seeing in the data more of that is happening. Our vendors know this. They're scheduling these as best they can, as fast they can. They're hearing from us regularly. We need to do more of this to get our veterans in, to do the C&P exams, to get the information we need to grant them benefits. One of the things I know you all are concerned about is our ability to access military records, because again, we need evidence about your medical condition. We may need records from the Department of Defense. When they closed down for the pandemic, they sent non-essential people home. It's reopening in different ways, and that has affected our ability to get information from them. They know the urgency we have on this one, and we're working closely with them to get that done. So that's a little bit of the explanation of what's going on behind the C&P exams and the evidence, which leads to the granting of claims. So often when I do Teletown Halls, and I'll talk about those in a minute, I get folks calling up and saying, can you tell me the status of my claim? And generally it's a couple of those things that I just described. We are not happy with the situation. We were very proud before the pandemic of how well we were processing claims and how timely we were. Now, of course, this has thrown a wrench in what we're doing, and we want to get back to getting veterans their benefits as quickly as possible. So we know that, we're working it, and I'm happy to talk more about it. And one of the things I'll share with you, one of the things we observed was getting the military personnel records from St. Louis was taking time even before the pandemic. We just awarded a contract last week to house a vendor in their facility in St. Louis so that we could literally take the personnel records and scan them right into our system, cutting out days from mailing and repackaging and all the different things we were doing before. So we're attuned to this, but that's an example of some of the steps we're trying to take to really streamline the process of granting claims. The other thing I'd point out is sort of like today, one of the things we're very worried about and really appreciate is the need for communication and to get information to our veterans. So in late March, I started conducting a series of Teletown Halls with our veterans in different states. So far, I've done 52 of these in different states, as well as with traditional VSOs, and really answering their questions. So it's a little bit of me talking, and it's a lot of Q&A. We have folks listening on the line, so if I can't answer the questions, and often some of their personal nature, hey, can you look into my claim, something happened to me, we follow up and try to get them answers to better understand what's going on. And of course, that's led to more and more discovery about requests for information. You know, gee, we're getting thoughtful veterans calling up, when I die, how will my wife be taken care of? So we talk to them about information that's available on our website, from the survivor and burial kit, for example, and talk to them about general information. But what those Teletown Halls have taught me a lot about is the need for just providing information and coming to forums like this and talking about how you access information about your benefits. So that's something we're observing during the pandemic. Student veterans were also treated differently as their schools started to close and shift to online. Legislation was signed by the president to make the housing allowance continue. If you had an in-resident housing allowance, you can continue that, and that's in effect through the end of the calendar year. And as the schools open or don't reopen, I would expect Congress to address this if it continues into the spring semester of 2021. So I really want to get to your questions here. So let me kind of bring it home to a couple points here. So generally what I offer veterans are sort of, these sort of observations about some of the things you should think about accessing the Veterans Benefits Administration. First, one of the things we have on our website, and we're happy to mail this to people if they call and ask for it, is we have a welcome kit. If you go to our website, va.gov, and simply type welcome kit in there, you'll be brought to a booklet that's 26 pages long that describes, how you begin your veteran journey with us, what forms you fill out, how you do things, and explain stuff. The reason why I talk about this is I'm the Teletown Halls now, and I think I've talked to over 2 million veterans, and I take about 20 questions, 15 to 20 questions every time. So you can see the math is going on like 1,000 questions. So many veterans have called and said, I didn't know I was a veteran. I didn't know about my benefits. I didn't know I was is it too late to apply? So that's why I'm really hitting the welcome kit. Maybe everybody on this meeting today knows everything about benefits, and that would be awesome. So when your friends or your buddies ask you, please tell them about this welcome kit, because again, it really is just so disheartening to hear about the situation where veterans did not know about these things or did not know how to do it. The other thing, of course, is, we always worry that we have all the medical information about our veterans' conditions. So, we do the C&P exams, veterans will bring their records, but we will also go find records if veterans will give us authorization to do that. So, for example, you might say, before I went into the military, I was treated for conditions. There are a set of records, or after I came out, set of records, or whatever, private medical records. If you will fill out a form, and I don't mean to go too graphically here, but here I'll give you the details. You will fill out form 21-4142 and 21-4142A. This authorizes us to go get your medical records from private providers. We'll get your DOD records, but from private providers, which can augment your claim. And we'll do this. And we're pretty good at it. The private providers know it, and we generally do it very quickly. Now, you might have brought all your records, you might have kept them all, and that's great too, but this is what we worry about. And again, a lot of the questions are, you did my evaluation, now I got to go do an appeal because you didn't consider something, you either missed it or I didn't have the records or whatever. So to the extent we can do that, that's something we will do. The other sort of thing is a lot of folks say this benefits process is complicated. Gee, it's not something I'm good at, and we understand that. So I'm not certain, I apologize, Jim, if BVA has service officers to help your veterans. So if you do, we're big fans of service officers helping veterans. But don't forget, states have service officers, the State Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, whatever your state has. Counties often have service officers, and even other VSOs. And I know a lot of folks are members of different VSOs, like the American Legion. They have service officers, and all of these can be done for free. There's no cost when you draw on these traditional service officers, and can help folks. And we encourage that because it can be overwhelming. Sadly, the rules are complicated. The need for evidence can be much. So we encourage that, because it's really painful when folks call in and say to me, again, on Teletown Halls, but even they've done this before, it's so complicated, I had to go hire an attorney and they charged me no fooling $10,000. That is a sad situation. I wish it didn't happen. I know it does. I know it's part of what being an American is. You have choices, but there are options, and that's something. And I'd probably ask for your members' help. Is one of the things we're noting is some of our really older veterans who are in homes, like nursing homes, like veterans homes, as they begin to approach the final days, they don't know, or they often have not told their spouse about service officers and how to get the benefits that will be coming once they pass, right? So we need to get this word out to as many veterans as possible so they're aware of how they can access their benefits and the like. If you do have benefits with us, the one thing we also ask you about is keep us updated on your personal information. It's not just moving, but if you have a change in life situation, if you are married, your benefits are increased to reflect that. If you have children, your benefits are increased to reflect that. If you, unfortunately or fortunately, if this is so you chose, you get divorced, you will get less benefits than if you were married. So we need to do that accurately. We need to get you the right benefits, at the right time. And unfortunately, if we later find out you've been divorced and you haven't told us for 2 years, you've incurred a debt because we've overpaid you, and rightly, we have to go collect that money back. This is just a very difficult situation. We don't like it. The veterans don't like it, but we've got to do that because that's just the right and fair thing to do. So we ask about life changes and being in touch with us. Of course, then similarly, we also ask our veterans to, if you are service connected, to come back and visit with us every 3 to 5 years, because unfortunately, as we grow older, things only get worse. I'd like to say they all get better, but I think we know conditions get worse. It's likely you might need a benefits increase, or there could be new benefits or new rules. So we ask them to come back and check in with us every 3 to 5 years to make sure, they're getting the right benefits. And again, what they've earned and the like. And finally, because I do want to get to your questions, one of the things we remind folks all the time is, you're not alone. You're not alone in this process. VA is here for you. We all have gotten better over the last few years. Give us a second chance. But if you reach this point where you're in crisis, I'd ask you to really consider calling the crisis hotline. It's 1-800-273-8255. This is the crisis hotline for our veterans, family members, service members in crisis. And what I really want to clarify about this line is answered by real people 24 hours a day, and it's answered very quickly. I was with the secretary several weeks ago and he was talking about it. He said he had checked the previous night. Calls were answered in 8 seconds. So we know what this is, and they're real experts dealing with this. And it could be, quite frankly, something as simple as a conversation, or something as urgent as rallying resources in the community to have law enforcement folks go to our veterans' homes to make sure they are safe and not going to harm themselves. So again, maybe you don't need this, but please, when you do your buddy checks, tell them about the crisis hotline, 1-800-273-8255. Because, it's just something we worry about our veterans. And again, Teletown Hall kind of calls. Person calls up, starts talking to me and says, I'm a veteran, what's going on? I'm homeless, and they get very upset and very emotional. And that's kind of what you worry about. So we immediately call them. We immediately get them to resources and the like. But please, we don't have to get there. There are resources, there are things, and we're here to help. So let me stop there because I do want to allocate time for your questions and make sure if I can't answer them, we'll certainly figure out how to follow up and get information back to our veterans and the like. So thank you very much, Jim, and everybody for inviting me. I hope that's been a brief overview. I know I didn't cover everything. So if there's anything in particular, please ask and we'll see how we can help.
Thank you, Dr. Lawrence. I got several questions here. First is, I think you touched on it earlier about obtaining records from the military. But yesterday we heard from the field that the Joint Service Records Research Center has shut down indefinitely due to COVID-19. And we have veterans, Vietnam veterans, who are fading fast, and they rely on verification of their Vietnam service from the JSRRC. What is being done to address that?
So share a couple of things. So I want to make sure we have the right acronyms, Jim. So I just want to make sure we got this right? So personnel records come from the place in St. Louis I talk about, right? The medical records comes from the JSTR, right? Mm-hmm. So that one, DOD's got the JRRC, right? The records, right? So the Army got out of that business, I think, late last year, okay? And we took that over. So there's a little bit of confusion, I think, about, who's in charge of what. So we took that over. So to the extent we still rely on them and they're having non-essential people, not be available, you're right, that will cause a problem. Well, we know that what you're describing, we appreciate very much that the average age of Vietnam veterans is 74 and a half. I think we're processing the Blue Water Navy claims. We feel that urgency all the time. So we appreciate that very much. I guess I'd be interested, and we can do this offline. And I think you've already starting to given some information to our team so we can look into that. I think we got some communication from you earlier today. So we're looking in on that, especially if anyone in particular is encountering this or hearing of this, we can go and investigate that. Because part of what we took over was also, even if records are lost in and around this area, there are other research areas where we can go, other research methods where we can go and figure out where they are. So we understand that. Again, happy to talk to you offline and communicate about some of the specifics so we can investigate and figure out how we make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, what is the VA Debt Management Center doing to accommodate veterans during COVID-19?
Great, I'm really glad you asked that. It almost is as much as the veteran wants. So let me explain the situation, right? When the pandemic started, the secretary issued directive to allow veterans to suspend their debt, okay? So we tried hard not to establish a new debt, but if you had an existing debt, you could call the Debt Management Center. Let me make sure I give you the number. It's 1-800-827-0648. Okay, so a veteran can call this and say, I would like to suspend or rearrange my debt payments. So it really is a function of what the veteran would like to do. Now, be clear on the wording, right? Suspend does not mean waive. So eventually this will have to be reinstituted, at the schedule, but there is a great deal of flexibility right now in what the veterans can, I wouldn't say negotiate, arrange with the Debt Management Center to do. So again, 1-800-827-0648, suspend or rearrange payments.
Okay, thank you. And next question is, there's a question regarding the 508 accessibility of VA's trip training and other similar VBA portals to be fully accessible. This impacts our blind service officers and also blind veterans, trying to access online information from VA. And so the question is, well, first off, we appreciate your interest in our concerns. I want to ask, have you made this a top VBA leadership 508 priority to resolve inaccessible VBA websites for our blind veterans requiring adaptive screen reading technology?
Yes, but there's so much more we need to do, and I'm probably going to ask for your help. So let me answer the question and figure out how to ask for your help. Okay, so let me go through some things, but figure out what's what. So we continue to hear your concerns and try to deal with this. An explanation inevitably takes us to needing more money for information technology, right? And so we run into sort of the situation that exists with the VA budget. It is largest ever, thanks to Congress, thanks to the president and whatever. But of course, money for technology goes into a pot and everybody goes there to try to get it. VHA, by virtue of what they do, tends to get the lion's share of it, and we struggle to do that. So as you go to the Hill and ask for more money, we need your help, I'm going to use a word that I don't think is right, earmarking the money to us for these things, right? So we go and argue, we talk about the importance of this and the like, and we come up far short from where we need to be. So not an excuse, just an explanation of what's going on. So I am very much in agreement with the what you're asking about. Sometimes we struggle with the how. Now, I know that one of the things I've discovered, from our earlier interactions is, we don't always know who's been blinded. If the service connection, if that's in fact why they got service connected, the veteran goes, we know that, but we often don't know if that's come for some other reason. So we'd ask for your help, making sure we know of all the veterans who are blind. Okay, so that's something we need to figure out if we got, everybody understood, and we then do things for them. Okay, we send larger print or the like. But I know that's the end of it. And here's where I need your help, Jim and others. Okay, I am told there is a active program, which we probably admit needs improvement. And this is where we need your feedback, to provide devices and provide assistance to our veterans to enable some of the things you're talking about. I'd be curious offline if there isn't maybe a small group we can set together and say, is this working and what can we do better? Because it all sounds good on paper, but if they're not getting there, if it's not really happening, then certainly even whatever we can do is falling short. So again, we have a bunch of things. I'd like to say, I go pound the table and the IT folks jump and give me all the money I need to do all the things you imagine. Sadly, it doesn't work this way. And so I'd like all the help I could to do that. But I'd also love your help figuring out, do the programs we have now work? And if not, what can we do better? Because, like I said, I totally am in support of the what. We just got to figure out the right hows.
We're partners in service to our veterans, and we'll definitely continue to be a partner here. And I know IT is they're centralized in VA, and a lot of things happen beyond your control, and it impacts us. So we'll definitely follow up on this important subject. Next question is, do you have the current, stats on like the AMA as far as the timeliness of appeals to the AMA?
Sure. So let me give you what I know about. So appeals modernization is really a function of us and the Board of Veterans Appeals. So I'm going to talk about VBA, the Veterans Benefits Administration. So we had a couple things going on over the last year. One of them was we had to complete the legacy appeals that came to us, right? Form 9s and the NODs and the like, okay? So we had about 250,000 of those last year. We have completed all those, so we are out of the appeals business. Now, the only appeals we handle are the remands from the board. We have a little more than 50,000 of those, and we're working those down as fast as we can. But what we got in appeals modernization, I think and your members know, are the 2 decision review lanes, higher level review and supplemental, right? And so for those folks who aren't deeply involved, right, higher level reviews like professional football, can I have someone else look at this, right? A more senior examiner and check and make sure it's right. And supplemental is additional information and the like. By law, we're supposed to be finishing those on average in 125 days. Those are being done, the last time I looked at statistics, about 75 days, 174 and 178, and I can't remember what's what. So for folks who ask, how do I, get my decision review? We strongly encourage using the 2 decision review lanes we get. From back in the day when I was traveling more, got really good feedback from veterans in person about this, that it was quick. It enables a teleconference on one of the lanes if the veterans so decide, so opt in to do that.
Thank you. Dr. Lawrence, we have a hand up. Don, will you go ahead and ask the question?
Yeah, so Tracy Farrow has a question. Tracy, if you go ahead and unmute, you can ask your question to Dr. Lawrence, sir.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now.
Roger that, we've got you loud and clear.
Okay, I was just wondering, when we do forms and stuff, we help veterans as a VSO and everything to submit it to the intake center. We can do all this stuff on a computer and everything else, but at the very end of it, we have to print everything, take it to a fax machine and fax it. We've gone so far electronically, as you've mentioned, through all the different processes and everything, but we're still stuck with a fax machine.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Tracy, for that question. And I'm so glad you brought this up because I'm cringing too. We are trying to stop that. We'll get with Jim and get you information on the way to file electronically. I'm not going to be good at this. There's something called ID Me that we'll really encourage folks to do for exactly the reason you're describing. We tell everybody file electronically for all the reasons you're just kind of sort of, feeling at this moment. And right, the last thing we want folks to do is fax. It causes us all kinds of problems. So yes, let us get you information about how to file electronically. We are 100% supportive of that. And it sounds like, again, we haven't communicated how to do this. I am told we have a very easy way to do this. And so let us get information to explain that to you and the other service officers.
Great. Thank you.
Dr. Lawrence, I want to add, we really appreciate the VA working with the U.S. Digital Services and also the different software vendors. And we recently obtained a program called VetPro that our service officer can use to electronically submit claims to VA. And I use it every single day, and it's fantastic. And it eliminates the need to have to fax information to the VA. And that wouldn't have come about without the partnership between VBA and the other partners. I wanted to ask, can you touch on the policy change on the VA is going to eliminate faxes as a means of submitting information to VA?
Sure. So first, let me get you to promise that you'll do a testimonial for filing electronically. Okay. So that would be really great. But yeah, well, we haven't done anything yet. So this is still pre-decisional, but it's sort of like Tracy just said, right? Faxes really aren't helping us very much, right? So ironically, the quality we get from faxes really doesn't enable us to process claims any faster. In fact, sometimes it kicks out of all the automation we are doing to streamline the claims process. So given that we have this new way to file electronically and others, you mentioned one, we'll share with your team, ID Me, that's accessible and the like. We want to discourage faxing. We want to encourage filing electronically. And just so you know, what we are really focusing on is streamlining the home claims processing process. So you might have read that we have brought an awful lot of artificial intelligence into the way we handle mail. When you used to mail us an old-fashioned letter, by the time we got it to your claim, your e-folder, it took 10 days. We're now doing that in 1 day. Faxes do not allow us to do it in 1 day. So we'd like to figure out how to explain that the real value proposition we're working towards is getting veterans their benefits fast, which is what they all talk to us about. So again, the technology in faxing has just really been overcome by filing electronically. So that's really what we like to explain to our veterans. And here's what happened. Veteran goes to Kinko's, puts his thing on fax. Something goes wrong at Kinko's. We get 10,000 pages of faxes. That will bring everything down for a day, affecting the 25,000 veterans who will interact with our mirror portal that day. And that happens from time to time. And when we call Kinko's, they just go, well, stuff happens, okay? So in addition to bad quality, these weird things kind of happen. But we need to embrace the technology that we all know exists. It's on us to educate and explain why it's good. Sort of like you pointed out, these software packages really do work well. Let's figure out how we get our veterans to understand it. And if they can understand it, to get service officers like you and Tracy to say, hey, we can help you do this faster because we want to get your benefits faster.
And Dr. Lawrence, also, can you tell us what the, I guess, with regards to e-benefits and the Stakeholder Enterprise Portal, for example, I use SEP almost every day. It's the fastest way to obtain the veterans POA. Mm-hmm. What's the future of SEP right now? I understand their funding's been, I guess, limited or cut, and they can only do maintenance but not enhancements. Is SEP going to be a priority in the future, or is it going to be phased out?
Well, you got me here, Jim, on this one. I don't know enough to do anything on this one with you, except to promise you we'll get back to you. And if there's other questions like some of the technical things, I'm just not deep enough and I don't want to speculate with you. But at a minimum, we'll get your question answered. And maybe what I should also do is get you connected with our technology guys here so you don't have to go through me to get answers to those questions. But absolutely. And don't view this answer as discouraging your technical questions. Just bring them on and let's get you the right folks who can give you the information.
Absolutely. I just want to let you know that even though it's an older system, it works great as far as getting the POA and the veteran calls in. I need their POA right now. And the quickest way is for them to go into e-benefits, elect POA, then I go into SCP and accept it, and I have instant access to their records.
Sure. No, that's great to hear your feedback. Let me talk to our guys directly to make sure that's heard.
Okay, great. And we have a follow-up question from Dr. Zampiri. He said, another challenge for blind and veterans in rural regions involves VA's reliance on various website initiatives for both health services and BVA support. Unfortunately, much of this technology remains, again, inaccessible to very rural, blinded, and more than a third, 38 or 36% of rural veterans lack access to the internet at home, which further constrains access. We would be interested in your approach to this barrier, not just blinded vets, but other very rural veterans.
Right. So we're spending a lot of time thinking about that because as we move to the world we imagine, filing electronically and the like, we do know there's parts of our country where there's less internet access. So we know that. I know that the VHA is working on this too because we give devices to folks who need telemedicine. We need to stay in touch and the like. I don't know the answer to this in particular detail, and I'm going to frustrate the technologist on the phone. So again, we will follow up with her. But I do know there are devices that go off the cellular signals, not off the internet signals. And so this enables more connectivity. So you're right. I mean, it's sort of a countrywide problem too. But the reality of the situation is we somehow have to figure out how to crack this code because we can't keep not doing technology because of segments that are restricted, right? We're sort of holding everybody back while we worry about the smaller fraction. Now, I admit more than a third is not a smaller fraction, so I'm not dismissing that at all, but we somehow have to figure out how to bring them along, because, I just remain perplexed by, okay, how are those folks dealing with life? Right? It isn't just VA they're dealing with. How are they dealing with life? And are there solutions that in the way they deal with life, we could somehow leverage, right? Do they have cell phones and therefore should we be more aware of what a cell phone is? Do they have something? And again, I'm not deep in this, Jim, but I just got to we need to figure out how to crack the code, but it's not just us. So the broad answer to the question, is it a VA priority? Yes, it is, because of obviously the need to provide healthcare to those veterans as well.
Jim, it's Don. One last time. We're running out of time, but we've got one other caller I'm going to bring on the line, and it's going to be the individual with area code 978. So caller at area code 978, if you can unmute your line, you can ask Dr. Lawrence your question.
Yeah, this is Gerard Boucher from Boston.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes,
thank you, gentlemen, for this conference call, first of all. Second of all, what do we do? See, Bedford, that comes from the New Hampshire border, and Bedford VA, we lost our VIS coordinator. They haven't had a replacement yet. And the VSO in Boston, they never return their calls. Well, what further steps do you think we should take?
Yeah, so I'm not really certain. I have an answer for you, but I'll tell you what, if we can get your information, to Jim, let us figure out how to talk to you individually about this and see what we can figure out, what we connect based on where you are and the situation you described. So I know I'm almost out of time now here. I don't mean to be short, but let us follow up. I'd ask for your help to get this veteran's information. And
absolutely.
Spend more time with him and get more personal insights, and then figure out how to help.
Absolutely. And Jim, I think you're good now. Dr. Lawrence, we thank you. Stuart, we turn it over to you now, sir.
Thanks, Dr. Lawrence.
Yeah. So just want to thank Dr. Lawrence for spending this time with us, taking time out of his day to share this information with us. Has been very valuable, and thank you to all of you for your questions as well. Really appreciate you guys doing this, and Dr. Lawrence for your office setting this up.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you. I do want to follow up on the offers I made to connect and get information from you. So I'll ask our folks to follow up with Jim and figure out, how we can transmit some information, get some more feedback on some of the things you were talking about, and certainly help the last veteran better understand the situation he was describing and make sure we help him to the extent we can.
We'll do that. Thank you very much. We do have Gerard's information, so we'll follow up with him.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank you
good
so
rest of
much.
the time together.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.